Shalom to the elect of Israel, to the whole flock of Israel, you Hebrew Israelites, you so-called Negroes and Latinos, Native Americans, West Indians, and Haitians. Got to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah. The Most High, the Heavenly Father, his Hebrew name is Yahweh. Not Yahweh, not Jehovah, not God, not Elohim, not Most High, not Lord, not Yah, not Jah, not Ahai, not Allah, not Abba, not Yahuwah. It's Yahweh. And his only God's son name in the Hebrew is Yahweh Shah. Not Yahshua, not Yeshua, not Jesus Christos, not Jesus Christ, not Sirach Christos, not Yeshaya, not Yehoshua, not Yahusha. It's Yahweh Shah. So we got to give all praise honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Rekah, Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the bishop and elders of great millstone, who rule well, who teach well, who are the apostles and elders of all of Israel, whether accepted or not. In the sense of salutation to all the and pushing this truth and believing this truth, where the four winds of the earth, the entire world, shedding light to the whole elect. Shalom to the Aqua for listen learning. If your sisters are listening, learning, coming into another lesson, true facts, faith, notification, another day notification, another Saturday application will always be edifying. And this will be part two. Esau describes the rise and fall of this last empire according to prophecy. And if you watch the first lesson I did on this is Richard Wolf, who breaks down the eighth, which is of the seventh, which is in Revelation 17. And let me read that real quick. Because I went to Revelation 17, how these Edomites know that America is the revival Roman Empire. So let me read this in Revelation 17. Then I'm gonna let this video play for the most part. This is Revelation 17 and 10. It reads, "And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and one is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7th, and goeth into perdition." So the 5 that are fallen, Germana Major, Germana Minor, Greeks, Spanish, and the French. And the one is was the Roman Empire. And the one that's not yet come was Great Britain, was the British. And it say, and the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7th, and goeth into perdition. So the 7th was the British Empire, the Great Britain, which America came out of Great Britain. And he breaks it down perfectly. But I want to get past the point because in the first lesson, I only went to 10 minutes of this video. I want to go into, this is a 56-minute video, 57 minutes. I want to go into the other points that he makes. So Lord willing, if you're in for the long run, Lord willing, you be edified. Let me turn this volume down.
But before I start, I have to ask you to understand something you probably already understand. It's that old adage that if you don't like the message, please don't take your anger out on the messenger. I am going to be describing to you as best I can what the situation is with the United States' economic system, which has a name. It's called capitalism. And it is, to give you a hint of where we're going, it is a system in very deep doo-doo. Ever seen in my life, and you can tell from my white hair that I've been around a while. I never expected to see what I am experiencing. And I imagine for many of you, it is the same, unless you are committed to something my psychotherapist wife explains to me as the problem of denial. Not a river in Egypt, but an inability to confront what it is that's going on, because it's frightening. It's a very human thing to do. When there's a scary dog in the neighborhood, because she still imagines at age 3 that if you don't see it, it isn't there. And if you don't see what's going on around us, then perhaps it isn't there. And that is something, that's one thing they all have in common, with very few exceptions, namely a commitment to denial. So my presentation today is going to try to break through all the mechanisms of denial that surround us in order to tell you what I think is going on. I'm not infallible. I make mistakes like everybody else, but this is the fruit of a lifetime of observing US capitalism. Which I was born in the United States in Youngstown, Ohio. I've lived and worked here all my life. I have never seen anything like the situation we are in now. And to give you the framework and then jump in, I think that the history of the world is a sequence with interruptions, but a sequence of empires: the Greek, the Roman, the Persian, the Egyptian, the Chinese. I mean, I could go on. They are born usually out of the demise of another empire. They evolve and change over a period of time, running from a few decades to a few centuries, and then they die. They pass away. The most recent one, perhaps the most and best studied, was the British Empire, which, depending on how you want to count, goes from around the 16th century to the end of the 19th, more or less. So 3 or 4 centuries, depending on how you count. Of the British Empire, literally punctuated by the war, the Independence War that swirled around Boston, right where you are. A part of that empire broke away and denied that this was building. Even the denial blew up in its face as the colonists here in this part of the British Empire, by the way, a relatively small, relatively unimportant part of the British lost. Not to be forgetful, let me remind you, they tried again and they lost again. And with that, set in motion the disintegration of the British Empire, which ended in World War I. Out of it emerged the American across the 19th century, resolved certain key internal contradictions, holding them back, of a capitalist Northeast and Midwest and a slave South. That was resolved by the willful destruction of slavery by the capitalists. Remember the Civil War, the expropriation without compensation of the single most important wealth of the South in this country, the slave. The slave was emancipated, and thereby the white master impoverished. A very stark disregard for this of private property. And capitalism having took off. Starting in 1870, the United States capitalism had a century of economic growth. The most amazing thing is if you look at the statistics, crude as they are, especially in the early years, the United States grew for that century, roughly 1870s to the 1970s. Every decade, real wages of workers were higher. Profits had this situation quite rare in the world of a give rising profits to its capitalists and rising wages to the mass of its workers, with course the exception of those workers with the bad luck to not have been born white. I growth under an economic system like capitalism, it isn't so surprising that you think of the United States. It was. If you're religious, perhaps you think God likes Americans better than he or she likes other people. What? Entrepreneurship. My professors used to like to say, whatever in the world that's supposed to be. Americans, whatever their other orientations, took on the notion that we live in an exceptional place, and they then really ran with that ball inherent, and so it would last forever. It was upward and upward, the economy, and would carry our culture around the world to become the world's culture, our political model, our military, those, it became, and I use this word carefully, crazy. And of course, when the things began, that this empire, the United States empire, after 100 years was behind.
Decline is passing bestiality laws in a few states, giving women's liberation, passing a bill for transforming the Decepticons with Equity Act rights. Those are just a few. A woman can commit adultery and get away with it and take half of a man's bag if he got the bag. Just a few. The government say that the kids is owned by the state. Like the parents don't own the kids. They are owned by the state. As Elder Malcolm bring out the point about Title 4D dealing with child support. These are just some of the things that shows you the decline of Babylon the Great, the so-called white man's last rulership on earth. It's many more, man. The GMO food, the chemtrails, as happened in the Roman Empire with the denarii, they was constantly taking away and adding copper to the money, which devalued the money. That's happening now with the petrodollar. Inflation, hyperinflation, which is going to lead to stagflation, which is going to lead to stagflation. These are just some of the things that's happening, man. equal to act rights. When the Lord said in Jude 1, he left, let me read this. He left what he did to Sodom and Gomorrah was supposed to be an example of how not to live. This is Jude 1 in verse 7. It reads, even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them in like manner, the other three cities, giving themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh, are set for an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire. See? So that's supposed to be an example of what not to do, how not to live.
Of such a system with such a history would be deep into denying what had happened.
That's through the pride.
Not seeing what was exploding around them. Over the last few days, Americans have been confronted yet again with the level of violence committed every day somewhere in this country by the police against the citizens on this or that particular policeman or woman who will not see that this is a social phenomena. It has been going on for a long time, and it is getting worse. The same issue. It's the same denial. Okay, exactly is being denied. Let's begin, and I apologize. I'm going to begin with economics, but that is what I know best, and that is what I have studied all my life. And so if I'm going to be useful to you, I want to share at first what I know best. Over the last 40 years, roughly 1980 to now, we have seen, and all economists of all political persuasions understand this and see it. We all use basically the same numbers, and with a few exceptions, of course, always we come to the same conclusion. Over the last 40 years, there has been a radical middle to the top. And the more top you get, the top 10% does really well. The top 5%, even better. The top 7 and top 1%, and you know them because in our society, we're talking about Bill or the blank. You know them. Our culture makes sure you know them. They became much richer. The top 10% became rich. This was partly because, very important that you understand this, it was partly because we changed the tax laws in these corporations and the rich, and we switched them onto the middle and bottom.
And what the scripture says in Daniel 7:25, he would think to change times and laws. Let's read it. That's Daniel's. And he said the middle class and the bottom, right? Because Esau, he's not talking about so-called Negro, Latino, Native Americans, West Indians, and Haitians. He's talking about the Edomites, the middle and the ones that's on the bottom. Daniel 7:25. Matter of fact, Daniel 7:23. Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth, which is the Roman Empire, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break it in pieces. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are the 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall rise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue three kings. So this little horn, America, which plucked up Spanish, French, and the British, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and dividing of times. That's what we see. He's telling you that it's the American Empire that he said that what that came out of British, man.
It was done by Republicans. It was done by Democrats. It didn't matter.
Which is what the plebeians and the patricians, man, of the Roman Empire. This what's that? Revelation 13, where he said, "I saw." Matter of fact, let me get it. Revelation 13. It reads, "And the beast." Hold on. Revelation 13 and 11. "And I beheld another beast coming up out of the sea, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon." Which is who? Babylon the Great America. The two horns is the Republicans and the Democrats, which is the plebeians and the patricians from the Roman Empire.
Who was in the White House or who was controlling the houses of the Congress. The Democrats did it a little less quickly. The Republicans were a bit more intense. Speed varied, content did not. Even more important than the changes in taxes was the phenomena of the relationship between capital and labor, that is, corporations and business on the one hand, and the mass of people, employees, on the other. As I've told you, real wages went up for a century. 1870s, 1970s. Now I can tell you, because that's when real wages in America stopped rising. Absolutely epoch-making change. Up by 10%. You're no better off with a 10% bigger money wage.
We say this all the time. If you get a raise, the cost of living is higher, man, than what we are making. You know, I don't care if you're making $35, $40 an hour, man, and you bring home a $2, $3, $4,000 check, man. The cost of living is higher than what we are getting paid, man.
We all know that in economics, so we don't use money wages. We use what's called real wages. Wages understood in terms of what it can afford you to buy. Goods, services, food, clothing, shelter, entertainment, education, medical care, whatever. Real wages rose. In other words, the money wages workers had from 1870 to 1970 rose more than the prices did. So they really got more stuff that they could afford to buy. In the 1970s, that stopped, and it has never resumed. The American working class today, earns, in terms of what it can afford to buy, the average American worker earns now what he or she did in 1978. Try to wrap your head around no more real wage increase. For a country that had enjoyed steady real wage rises for a century, this is a traumatic event. How was it handled in the United States? Denial. I won't embarrass you by asking how many of you know what I just said to be the case. How many of you have dwelt in your mind on what it might do to a population used to a rising wage when it is no longer available? There was no discussion at the time or since. No debate in this country. What do we do about all of this? The closest you got were vague gestures in which somebody says, gee, the middle class seems to be fading away, as if this were, I don't know, some sort of cosmic effect, or maybe the result of sunspots or allergies, or who knows what. But an analysis either of why it happened or of what its consequences were, no, nothing serious. Well, let me tell you what some of the results were. Number one, by far the most important socially, the women of the United States left the home.
I mention it all the time. The apostles, the elder bishops, and elders mention that all the time. The women's left the home. See, this is what I want to get to. That's why I had to do a part two of this, man. This is when Esau, Edom, kingdom started to fall. And the Lord said it when he said his nest amongst the stars. That's what he bring them down. And here's the Edomite giving you the same thing the apostle been telling you. He's telling you this without spiritual discernment. Hold on. Let's go back a few ticks.
The women of the United States left the home where they had been sequestered for the earlier parts of American history and had to go out and do wage labor en masse. The only ones who had been doing that beforehand were black and brown women. They've long been doing it because they had to.
See? History, facts, truth from Edomites, man. Oh, what's the video I was looking at? It was a small TikTok video, and the chick was saying the same thing. I forgot what brother posted it. Let me see real quick. Bear with me here. Maybe it's in my timeline. Let me see if I can pull it up just to show this. Our women are waking up to this, to what actually happened to them. The reason why they get to get ahead of men, which it was a prophecy that Yahweh said in Jeremiah. What's that? Jeremiah 30 and 22. The Lord said, "Women shall come past men." Let me see if I can find this. It probably not even be in my. It was a TikTok skit I was watching from. Let me see if I can find it. Let me see if I can find this. Yup. This from the brother Arrows of Indignation. It's from his channel. Let me. So real quick, let me show you this. Then we're gonna come back to Richard Wolf. Because see what we're dealing with now, the Lord say he's gonna make Esau bad in the last days. So this is from the brother Arrows of Indignation. This is from his channel. It's a quick TikTok post, I'm assuming. It say, "Listen up, Eve. Maybe you will believe. Listen up, Eve. Maybe you will believe if another so-called black woman tells you." Listen to this.
What really fucked all our shit up was, when after all that, just real quick, black man get out the house and all that type of shit. That's where the division really, really started. Because really, to me, even before all that, we was more together through slavery and civil rights than we are now. But that kind of was like that was the first detriment on us. You know what I'm saying? So what's going to happen to him? He in the streets, so now he got to rob, steal, kill, sell drugs, become a drug addict. So then they not going to give him a job. They're going to give a black woman a job. So, black women making money. He not. That's going to fuck up the whole little how I respect you type shit.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that was like the first. Now, fast forward that all the way up to now, bitches is out of control. I'm just keep it all.
See? I wish I could find the whole article, the whole podcast, whoever podcast that is, man. But this is, man, the Lord is stirring up jealousy, man. Like you said in Isaiah 42. The truth is out, man. So now, these women is waking up to the reality of they have been westernized by the so-called white man. We always westernized by the so-called white man. Let me run this back. Hmm. Yep. And that's the Edomite woman. This is when Esau's kingdom started to decline, man. Which the Lord said in Obadiah 1 when he said his nest amongst the stars, thence will he bring them down, man. We talk about it, I talk about this all the time. The Edomite women had to leave the house and start working, man. Which are so-called Negro, Latino, Native Americans, West Indians, and Haitians, because we are different shades of brown. Yep. Yep. The fantasy. And where the scripture, the Lord said in 2 Corinthians 10 and 5, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalted itself against the knowledge of the Lord, man. You heard what him said. You heard what he said. America's dream is a fantasy, man. Which is what happening now. Your American dream is becoming a nightmare. Oh,
Y'all
Salakia.
didn't
I
know
thought I had
what really
Salakia.
fucked all our.
Salakia. That's my bad. I thought I had flipped it back. I didn't flip it back. Bear with me. Salakia. Salakia for that. Hold on here. I thought I had flipped it back to Richard Wolf. My bad. Let's back up. Cause this is important what he's saying, man. Let me back up.
Number one, by far the most important socially. The women of the United States left the home where they had been sequestered. For those who had been doing that beforehand were black and brown women. They long been doing it because they had
Negro, Latino, Native American, West Indian, Haitian women. Because we under the curses. And by the sweat of our brow shall we eat bread, both men and women.
and the poorest among the whites.
Yup. And they call trailer park trash. Which a lot of them is Jake, man.
But now suddenly, all women, all the wives and mothers
Yep.
had to go out.
Yep.
There was no other way
Nope.
to sustain the fantasy of growth.
Again, casting down imaginations. The American dream has become a nightmare, man. The Lord, Yahweh Shema Shai, is turning your American dream to a nightmare. And it's reality for the elect, for the remnant.
Of the American dream, of what had been experienced in the previous century. The second most important effect, Americans began to realize that the only way they could participate in further growth of consumption, the way they had been led to believe was somehow inherent in the American experience, besides sending their wives out to work, besides following a career as a worker in a factory, you could now go back to work and be a greeter at Walmart's.
Mm.
But beside that, you could borrow money. In the 1970s, the banks of the United States decided that the consumer, to whom they had never lent money before, they would now lend money to. In other words, the credit card, which until then had been American Express in the businessmen, would now become socialized. Everybody's wallet would be crammed full of plastic cards. Live off them.
Yes. Slaves.
And so the American working class, from around the 1970s to the present, accumulated society in the way we never were before. We became pioneers, not in covered wagons going west, but in what we could cram growth of all the growth of consumption. All the growth of consumption in the last 40 years has been based on women's labor, women's earnings, and debt. Families have become much more complicated institutions to survive. If I had more time, I'd go into that with you. We have the highest divorce of pressure that would be impossible for anyone to sustain. American women consume more psychotropic drugs than any other population on the planet. Why? Because they are druggies? No, because they're under pressures, which blew up family. I was exhausted as the husband coming back from her hours of work. The empire's foundation is beginning to crack. Well, you keep assuming more debt, which the American working class did. It borrowed. It had borrowed with government support for its house. That's how mortgage. For those of you who don't know, mortgages were never given to working class people to buy a home until the Great Depression. To get us out of the Great Depression, the government took the step of guarantees could lend without a risk. Otherwise, they wouldn't have, because they never did. So the American Homeowner Society, which was too greedy and too frightened to ever do it. Home loaning, then the car had to be paid for with loans because the working class couldn't afford it. Then the credit card, so you could buy everything, the college student. So by now the family is dying, floating in levels of debt it cannot support because the underlying wage didn't go up, just the debts. And it doesn't take a PhD in economics, although I have that, you to understand that if the underlying wage doesn't go up, you can debt because the time will come. That's exploded. Cracks in the empire. This system is so committed to inequality that not only did it grow over the last 40 years, of course, where would workers' income go? They couldn't grow. Their wages were flat, but they were becoming more productive all the time. The last 40 years are the computer, the robot, artificial intelligence, all of that. Workers' productivity goes up. Workers' wages are flat. Wages are what the employer gives you. Productivity is what you give the employer. If what the employer gives you, you give it's rising, guess what? You have an inequality. You'll put and give class of people.
And see,
If that.
one thing about these guys, they ain't gonna mention who it is. He said one class of people, which he say classism, and Chris Hedges say classism, which is the elites, man.
They get it. Even across COVID-19 pandemic, inequality got worse. And what did we do to the working class after we gave them 40 years of losing everything, their families falling apart, their position in American society, their growing wealth, a kind of affirmation that somehow you're doing better. All of it's taken away.
Mm-hmm. See?
Then
that's the generational wealth and white privilege, man. I'm gonna do a part 3 to this. See, generational wealth and white privilege has been taken away from the common Edomite, man.
Them with COVID, then we hit them with an inflation, and now we're hitting them with rising interest rates. Let me frighten you, if I may, if what I've said hasn't done that job already. There is an example in history of another working class over a small number of years being hit scale of what's happening here. The example is Germany. As the British Empire is declining, the United States is not the only competitor looking to replace the British. There is another one, Germany. World War I defeats Germany. Britain, with its allies, defeat Germany, throw them out, impose on at the end a reparations pay. The class, which had been built up across the 19th century to believe it was creating a whole new globe. In German, it's called das Deutsche Reich, R-E-I-C-H. That's like the German Empire. And it had and so the empire was taken away, literally. The British took the colonies in Africa away from the Germans and made them British colonies. Everything for them destroyed. It was a trauma for the German working class. It ended in 1918 with defeat. Within 4 years, early 1920, late 20th century ago, Germany then experienced modern times anywhere in the West. In a period of 9 months, currency from Deutschmark to dollar to 4 trillion Deutschmark to dollar. Doubled every hour.
So I'm gonna stop it right there. 26 minutes. I'm winding up doing a part 3 of this because I want to play some more of this because I only had got the 10 minutes in the first lesson. But to show you, man, as I read Psalm 64 and 7. But God shall shoot at them with the arrow, suddenly shall they be wounded. In verse 8 say, so that they shall make their own tongue to fall upon themselves, all that see them shall flee away. And I read the Job 15 and 5. Thy own tongue, man. This is the Edomites speaking against themselves. Let me get these. I just got 3 precepts I want to read. This is Isaiah. Lord willing, I can get to the part 3. Lord willing. This is Isaiah 47 and verse. Let's see here. Isaiah 47:11. Therefore shall evil come upon thee, thou shalt not know from whence it riseth, and mischief shall fall upon thee, thou shalt not be able to put it off, and desolation shall come upon thee suddenly, which thou shalt not know. This is Jeremiah 50 and 22. A sound of battle is in the land of great destruction. How is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? Babylon the great America be the hammer of the whole earth. How is Babylon becoming desolation among the nations? I have laid a snare for thee, and thou art also taken, O Babylon, if thou wast not aware, like I read in Isaiah 47:11. Thou art found and also caught, because thou hast striven against the Lord. Yahweh have opened his armory and have brought forth the weapons of his indignation. For this is the work of power, Yahweh Bashem Yahweh of hosts, in the land of the Chaldeans. This is Job 24 and 23. It reads, though it be given him to be in safety, whereon he resteth, yet his eyes are upon their ways. They are exalted for a little while, but are gone and brought low. They are taken out of the way as all other, and cut off as the tops of the ears of corn. And if it be not so now, who will make me a liar and make my speech nothing worth? So we are watching the decline of Babylon the Great America, man. And you got Edomites that's telling you, because they're on the inside watching from the inside out, and we on the outside looking. And we all see Babylon the Great as being deteriorated from the inside out, man. As it say in Isaiah, let's get this. Isaiah 14. In 11 it reads, thy pomp is brought down to the ground, to the grave. Thy pomp is brought down to the grave, and the noise of thy vows, and the worm is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee. And we are watching the corrosion, the corruption, the deterioration of Babylon the Great. The Lord was edifying. I to give all praise and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Kakwadash. That one us to the apostles and the bishop, and others, a great minister, who well, who teach well, who are the apostles, and has all the Israel, whether accepted or not. And the sincere salutation to all the argument pushing this truth from believing this truth to the four winds of the earth, the entire world. Shed light to the hopeful elect. Shalom to the Awath who are listening, learning. If your sisters who are listening, to tuning in. May Yahweh Shema Shah continue to bless you in your house. May the blessing of Alex be upon your house. Until next time, I say Shalom. Wa Abba.